these are byproducts of these things. They're not the point of it. So out of the Second Amendment, you get to hunt, you get to have a defense mechanism in your house and all that. But those are byproducts. They're not.
That's fine.
They're not the purpose of them.
Protecting your family and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's the abuse of it.
Well, that's anything. Like we were saying earlier today, I make nuclear. We made nuclear. I make nuclear weapons. If I make a nuclear weapon or nuclear power, I split the atom. I'm Oppenheimer, right? I split the atom. Now that technology, that understanding, can either power a city or destroy a city. It's all in how we use it from then on out.
How you use it.
Right? So like you were saying, we're coming full circle back to our conversation in the parking lot, artificial intelligence, right? I am of the mind that artificial intelligence will only bolster humanity. However, as we discussed, I am also aware that in this system that we live in, artificial intelligence is incredibly scary. It's an incredibly scary thing, because if I'm Jeff Bezos and I can automate all my warehouses, how many people would be out of a job at that point?
That's the bad part of it.
That's super
it's
scary.
Put a lot of people out.
But now take it from a sci-fi approach that we transcend our Bronze Age legacies of government and economics and religion, and we automate everything, but we automate it to enrich humanity so that instead of you driving a truck or me teaching Tai Chi, I can, not that you drive a truck anymore, but, or even being a soldier, right? Instead of human beings doing that, we can now devote we've got machines to do that for us. Right. We can now devote our time to, let's say, Tai Chi, learning Tai Chi, like really getting into it.
Improving our lives.
I'm not just teaching Tai Chi anymore to support myself, right? I'm teaching Tai Chi because I really want to know the inner workings of Tai Chi, right? And how it can enrich my life and then therefore enrich the lives of others. And that's all I dedicate myself to, because I have a robot that washes the dishes, that cooks for me, that cleans my place for me. I'm not worried about money because the robots build everything. So there's no reason to charge. You don't need a salary anymore.
So it gives us freedom.
It gives us freedom.
Back a few hundred years ago, the tractor was probably scary to the farmer, because they were used to working the land by hand. They said, "Oh, well, it's going to put us out of business." What am I going to do now? Yeah. So that was new technology then.
I'll give you one.
This AI is new technology today, which could be a little scary, but used properly, it can be great. Absolutely.
I think history has shown us that usually when a new technology comes out and eliminates jobs, as long as people are willing to adapt to the new reality, new industries come up.
It creates a new
industry.
Yes.
Funny thing, I'm glad you brought up field hands in this. Slavery. Slavery was a cornerstone of human civilization for millennia.
All the way back into Roman times and before. Even
absolutely.
The Indians used slaves.
Oh yeah. Slavery is something. Listen, it's the same idea as the robot. Here is something that can do all the things I can do. And if I have them do these things, then I get to free myself up for better things.
And it got rid of slavery, pretty much. Not 100%.
The Industrial Revolution, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a funny thing.
We don't need that anymore. We evolved beyond that.
Absolutely. People are like, oh, it was the abolitionist movement. It was the Industrial Revolution that allowed for the conversation to even be had. Right? Because if it wasn't for the machines, even the most stalwart opponent, and we see this now when it comes to climate change, that new report that just came out, stating that we really need to make some changes and make them quick, right? At the cost of, I think, $54 trillion, we need to make these changes, and we need to completely overhaul how we live. Well, even the most staunch climate savior out there is even looking at this report and like, but how am I going to get around without a car? How am I going to do this and that? And suddenly it's going to hit you, and you don't necessarily want to take that hit because you've got to give something up, right? And we've talked about this before.
But you can get an electric car, and you can get solar panels on your house, so you can.
There are technological
use less petroleum.
Correct. Absolutely.
We all can.
We absolutely all can.
Your next car should be electric, maybe.
But this is no different, and this is the funny thing, right? So the British, when they come across their, because I think the first industrial machines they had was something like 1706. They created it, where they were milling the mines and having saving on labor. And Britain was one of the first countries to stop the slave trade and then eliminate slavery wholesale. We were one of the last, right? And part of that was we were one of the last to embrace the Industrial Revolution, right? It took a while for it to get over here to the New World, and it was brought about because we didn't need slavery anymore. In fact, slavery became economically a bad move, and that's why we wanted to get away from it, because you could have this machine that doesn't need time off, doesn't need rest, doesn't need food, just needs maintenance, whereas a slave needs housing, clothing, shelter, medical care, all that stuff. So the investment, one time for a machine and then intermittently for maintenance, or every day there is a cost to having these people out here in the fields. So there was an economic choice in it that spurred it on. If you go back to the 2nd century, the Greeks had basically a steam engine. In their temples, you would plunk a little quarter in, or a drachma in, and it would go down and set off a set of triggers, which would release steam. And that steam would actually open the doors to the temple. Fantastic, right? And an engineer by the name of Hero had a steam-driven puppet show the whole thing would go on because of the steam underneath. They had technology like the steam engine. And when the Romans came across this, they thought it was cute or whatever, and when it was presented as something that could make building easier, transit easier, all that, tilling the fields easier, you know what the question was? What are we going to do with all the slaves? And that question abounded for nigh 2,000 years before it became economically viable to get rid of slavery because of machinery.
They had the steam machines, but they weren't using it to make...
They were using it for cute little tricks and things of that nature.
Like we started out with the digital.
Correct.
It was, computers, games, but now it's becoming
It's the whole world. Yeah.
So the Industrial Revolution is kind of ending, and the digital revolution is kind of starting.
Beginning, yeah.
It's just beginning.
Yeah, but we're living with the Industrial Revolution was a transition phase. Truly everything is transitional, right? But more so than really any other age humanity has been through, the Industrial Revolution should have just been a springboard to the next phase of whatever civilization is going to be. And we just didn't go there. We decide, because at the end of the day, what ends up happening is the people in power want to stay in power above and beyond everything else, right? And this goes back to the parties. Because there's a difference between the voter and the politician. And the difference is the voter has power once or twice a year. The politician has the power all year round.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
And the politician wants to keep that power. So when you look at the two parties, one of the reasons the Republicans are doing so well and the Democrats are just taking black eye after black eye after black eye is the Republicans have convinced their base that they're looking out for them.
It changes week by week. It wasn't that long ago that the Republicans were sinking like a lead balloon and the Democrats were rising to the top. But then something happened with the Kavanaugh thing or something, which denigrated the Democrats back to the bottom of the heap, and the Republicans right, and it's going to change again.
Well,
it's like a flow. They'll go up and they'll go down.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this is where we can use our Tai Chi principle. Yes, and I've been saying this all year. Trump. I don't care. Even the MAGA guys. He's a buffoon. The country has literally avoided disaster. One, because we've been lucky thus far, and nothing big has happened under his watch, where we've actually had to have him pull things together and be a leader. And two, because he doesn't know the government.
But he's starting to learn it.
Well, that's the scary part. That's the scary part.
With this last confirmation, he was very well spoken.
Well, I think the Republicans are all in.
I think he was adapting to his situation.
I think the Republicans are all in.
And he may be a buffoon, but he is the buffoon that got himself elected president.
Exactly. So yeah, I can only say so much.
Right.
I think that says more about the voter than it does about him at the end of the day.
But I do think he's acclimating into his office.
And the Republicans are helping him. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. Here's soft and hard power, right? Soft power is this. Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, all these guys, they get into a room together and they say, listen, he's going to put up Kavanaugh. He's a bad pick. He's got a lot of skeletons in his closet. There are better picks than this guy, but if Trump really wants to go there, we're going to get this done. Said that right from the beginning.
Right.
We're going to get this done. This is a speed bump. We see wrapping this up very quickly and getting him appointed. That was said before the very first hearing of Blasey Ford.
But had they found him guilty,
I don't think it would have mattered.
Really?
You only find someone guilty if you want them. Would it matter? Because of the tribalism, would it have mattered?
It would matter to some people.
Some people. Would they have voted anyway? That's really the question. Would they have been enough to tip the balance?
Good question.
Right? So that's soft power at play. And this is a political gamble here. And the gamble is pretty simple. Maybe we lose in November. Maybe we lose some seats. Maybe we even lose the House. Maybe we even lose the Senate. But the Democrats are in such turmoil right now. They are so fractured and dejected. And I want to touch on that in a second. That even if we lose in November, we very well can have gained power through special elections, and 2 years later, we can retake everything. But if we get a Supreme Court nominee appointed, we have that for decades. For decades. So what's the smart play? Get your guy on the Supreme Court. Get him on the Supreme Court. Doesn't matter what the cost is. Get him on there. Because once he's there, good luck getting rid of him. Thank you for joining us for that clip of our weekly podcast. If you want to get more Bonage footage or join us for the entire podcast, head on over to Patreon, where our Eagle, Tiger, and Dragon subscribers get access to not only what we cast and talk about, but advanced lessons in your forms, in your Tai Chi, and in your life.